You're watching Fox 9 all day.
It's always exciting to talk about new discoveries.
Now here, for the first time in history,
Scotchgard brand stain repeller.
Scotch brand oven liner.
Scientists have now come up with a powerful new firefighting device.
It may be the most insidious pollutant that man's created.
There are chemicals in our environment, whether we like it or not.
The more I learned, the more concerned I became.
These chemicals don't break down.
So you can't see it, you can't feel it, it's invisible, but it's there nonetheless, isn't it?
That's right.
It'll be in use everywhere to save lives.
Another fine product of 3M Company.
We know three things to be true.
As the 3M people do, they give you all the help and information they possibly can.
3M made these chemicals.
Used all over the globe.
3M disposed of these chemicals.
The waste products had been buried in landfills.
There's a very strong message that these compounds were not toxic.
I've said it now twice. It was not a concern.
I said, my God, they knew about it 50, 60 years ago.
Isn't it amazing?
The misrepresentation.
I don't agree with the word contamination.
Was very calculated.
They'll tell you a lot more. Depends on what you think is a lot.
And now these chemicals are in every single human being's blood alive on the planet today.
Scotchgard.
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 Another product of 3M research.
And joining me now is the executive producer of the Investigative Unit and Documentaries show, Augustine. Thanks for taking some time here. I know you've been working on this for a very long time. So we just saw it right there. Everywhere and forever, the blood, water, and politics of PFAS. We've been talking about and hearing about PFAS, I think many of us for, maybe most of our lives, or at least for the last maybe decade or so especially. This is different. You're taking us into new territory here. Can we start kind of with PFAS 101, right? Forever chemicals. Where did they come from? How did we get here with them?
Yeah, so PFAS is an industrial chemical that was discovered when they were making the nuclear bomb. And then 3M, a company based here in Minnesota, took that formula, that chemical, and manufactured it on a massive scale. And it went into products. Most recognizable is Scotchgard. So Scotchgard went into pretty much everything. I mean, it's your raincoats, your all sorts of things. I just bought an umbrella at my parents' 4th of July party, an umbrella for the deck. Picked it up, said 3M, marketed right there on, coated with Scotchgard, Scotchgard resistant. So it is still an everyday part of our lives, and it's been an everyday part of our lives since the 1950s and 60s.
Wow. Okay, so 1950s and 60s, and then here we are, 2025. There's a lot that's happened in that span. It's been reported on before. We know that there was really kind of groundbreaking reporting that was done by NPR early on. What was it that prompted you to say, we need to take yet another look at this because there's maybe some new information?
So this has been an interest of mine for several years, mainly because of the litigation in Minnesota. So the former Attorney General for Minnesota filed a lawsuit against 3M in 2010. It was settled in 2018 for close to $900 million, which was a pretty big watershed moment for the state of Minnesota and 3M Company. But really, my interest, there was a Hollywood movie actually made about DuPont, the company based in West Virginia, and the contamination of water from DuPont through
the movie?
Dark Waters. Okay. It was it involved Mark Ruffalo. It was a project about DuPont's role in this and an attorney who took on this company and won. But after watching that movie, I was thinking, very interesting, fascinating. 3M's in our backyard. Where's the big project about 3M's role in this? Because 3M was the company that sold the chemical to DuPont that they then used in Teflon, which is the coating that goes into all of our cookware for all those years, right? So that's where my interest was, and the goal ultimately was to do kind of a comprehensive project and really add to the historical record. As you mentioned, there's been plenty of reporting on this, hundreds if not thousands of articles about 3M and PFAS. Tremendous local reporting from NPR 20 years ago to more recently. Dina Winter at the Star Tribune has done phenomenal reporting. When she was previously at the Minnesota Reformer, also did some phenomenal reporting over there. But it's piecemeal, right? It's an article here, it's an article there. This was really an effort to go and kind of put all of these pieces together. And then as I was starting the process in that, we really We took a long shot and we got very lucky, and that really added to our final product.
Okay. So what was it that you were able to look at and go, oh yeah, this is why we should do this? Because not necessarily new information, but information that had never been sort of revealed before. And did that come out of court documents, or how did that all come about?
So really what happened was there's plenty of reporting on the documents that came out as part of the state's litigation, which is 3M studies, 3M memos, all of this stuff from dating back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Okay. So we got some insight into what was happening inside 3M during all of those decades as they were still producing these chemicals. And there was extensive reporting in the 2000s on it. But what we never knew is what 3M executives were saying kind of behind the scenes. And where we got that, we took a shot and we filed a records request under the Minnesota Data Practices Act for all of the video depositions that had been recorded as part of the state's litigation. And so we got hundreds of hours of videos of 3M executives, scientists, former government workers on camera and under oath. And that really kind of just opened the door for us to go full speed ahead, because this was never before seen videos of what they had to say, under oath, being grilled by state attorneys about what they knew, when they knew it, and how they responded.
So were you surprised? Were you shocked at what they knew and when they knew it?
I will, yes. I mean, even having read through all of the records, seeing them on camera respond to this line of questioning about what they knew. There's a couple parts that really stand out. One of the former 3M toxicologists talking about a study on rhesus monkeys and him trying to explain how they handled that study, which they had to terminate because all the monkeys were dying, and him trying to explain this, and then he's pressed on it and they said, so you had to put them all down because they were too sick. And he's like, yeah. And so just those little moments that come out that don't always jump off the page from a court record, seeing them on camera explain this and defend the company's position, right? And the company's position is, hey, we handled this responsibly. We did everything that we could, and we don't know the health impacts of this. We didn't know all of this stuff. So we tried to represent the company's stance on this as much as we could as well.
From their own mouths.
Yeah, from their own words. So it really helped. For us, 3M doesn't talk about this much anymore. They are still facing litigation across the country, across the world, really. So they don't talk about this much. In the early 2000s, they had company executives doing interviews with Fox 9, with media outlets all over. They don't do that much anymore. So the depositions gave us a window into, okay, we actually get to hear what they're saying now. And so we had these videos that were just very enlightening, and that helped us piece together this puzzle because we had them in their own words, and being truthful in their own words.
There was someone that you interviewed for this documentary who played an interesting role in all of this early on. Tell us a little bit about Fardeen.
Yes, Dr. Fardeen Oyelele. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that there.
Yeah. Tell us about her role in all of this, because to me it seems like a small potatoes kind of thing, but it just, wow, her story is fascinating.
So I didn't know about Dr. Fardeen's story here until I started kind of doing my initial research on it, and then uncovered there had been a lot of reporting in the mid-2000s on her, mainly by two investigative journalists at Minnesota Public Radio. They had been kind of the first ones to speak to Fardeen on the record about her early research when she was working for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, our regulatory agency that investigates emerging contaminants, pollution in our environment, mainly in our water. And she had been studying this in the early 2000s and was finding that these chemicals that had been produced by 3M for decades were starting to show up not only in the surrounding Twin Cities metro where 3M is based, but far, far away in our environment. They were showing up in our fish in Voyageurs National Park. So her early research was really crucial because it was showing that the contamination was very widespread and it was getting into our food chain, which was significant. Now, we later learned that 3M was aware of this for a long time, but this was the state's time where they were becoming aware of it. So her early research into this was really instrumental, but then there was a shift at the top of the agency.
Okay, and this is where, I know this is in the weeds a little bit, but I think this is such an important part of this story and the trajectory of what happened. So at this point, she is, again, working for the state, not for 3M. She's not a researcher for 3M. Correct. For the state. She is telling the state this is what I'm finding, and is clearly, you know, raising her hand. And the state's reaction at that point is what, and who are the players involved?
So her research was really starting to gain momentum in the early 2000s, and she wanted to expand her research. And she asked for less than $150,000 to expand her ongoing research in taking fish samples, wanting to see how far widespread this truly was. That request was denied.
Okay.
And $144,000, by the way, in a state budget is small, very small. She then scales it back to like $14,000. That's also denied. And at that point, she's wondering what's going on here. Well, at the time, the MPCA had gone through a leadership change. They had actually appointed a new commissioner. That commissioner was a former manager, environmental manager at 3M. Her name was Cheryl Corrigan. She comes in, is appointed to lead this agency, and suddenly the interest in that emerging contaminants research doesn't appear to be there. And her requests for funding are scaled back, they're denied, and she really feels like, I can't move forward with this. And that's when she goes and talks to the investigative journalist at NPR, and all of a sudden this really starts to come out, and there's more questions, more scrutiny on, well, why is this former 3M executive now heading the MPCA, and what's happening with this research? So right at the time that we are starting to understand the scope of this contamination, that's right around the same time that cities in our East Metro were understanding, well, what's going on with our water supply? We're finding this chemical in here. So this was all kind of coming to a head at the same time, and that's when Fardeen went and spoke out to two investigative journalists. That led to state Senate hearings, you know, a lot of questions about the agency. She ultimately resigns and files a whistleblower lawsuit against the state that settled for more than $300,000. But she's forced out of government research, never worked in government research again. She left Minnesota and really had done no press on this until we went out to Philadelphia and talked to her.
Wow. There's so much more, Joe, but I know I need to leave some for folks to want to, you know, go watch the rest of this. I just want to ask you one more thing about sort of the impact on the people who are watching this. As we heard from, was former Attorney General, was that Lori Swanson?
Yes, Lori Swanson.
She says, this is in all of our bodies. Every person who's alive right now, PFAS are in your body. That's a really big statement. Help us understand what that means and how worried we should be about that.
So it's tricky. So the environmental contamination, we understand the scope through testing and standards. We understand where this exists in our environment and some of the impact it's having, right? And the need to clean up our water. When it comes to our bodies, it's a little trickier. So yes, it is understood that it's widely, and we can all just accept we have some of this in our blood because of this just global, worldwide contamination. It's in everybody. The impact it has on you is where it gets really tricky because it has been classified now as a hazardous substance and it has been linked to increased risks of cancer and other diseases. But proving that the chemical or the contamination in your body is what's causing that is what's still being fought over in court. And it's going to be kind of the next frontier, if you will, in this challenge of PFAS is understanding what this is. One of the sound bites from the documentary that really stood out to me was a scientist at the University of Minnesota who said, this is where it gets tricky, understanding the impact that this one chemical is having with all of the chemicals that we ingest into our bodies. So separating that out and deciding this one chemical is causing this problem is going to be really difficult. But that's kind of the fight that's ongoing right now and what 3M is pushing back on right now. So that's what has to get sorted out next.
Wow. Incredible, you know, to take a story that has been around for decades and to sort of move it forward. And, you know, as a journalist and looking at what you've done, you look at this kind of thing and go, wow, this is the kind of thing that sometimes can change the course of a company too. I mean, not to overstate it, but really, you know, you look at this and go, you know, and we've said it many times over the decades, how will they recover from this? But this is a big one.
Well, I think you make a good point there. I mean, and listen, 3M has already agreed to pay close to $14 billion in settlements with watershed districts and between the state of Minnesota and watershed districts across the country. No matter how big your company is, $14 billion is still $14 billion. So that's what they've agreed to. In fact, their insurance company is currently fighting with them over saying, we don't want to cover this.
Their own insurance
company. Something we reported on earlier this year saying, you guys should have known about this, so we don't want to cover your liability on this. So that's another side story to this.
Sure.
But yeah, there's going to be real questions about what 3M is facing moving forward. Now, what impact that has on the company, I think only the executives can speak to, and maybe their attorneys. But this is definitely not over. There is still ongoing litigation moving forward that the company is facing, despite all of those settlements. So they've kind of, the past is we've already agreed to pay $14 billion. What impact that has on them moving forward is going to depend a lot on what happens in court across the country and across the world.
Yeah. I could just keep going here. There are so many elements of this that we haven't even touched on. There's Amara's Law. I mean, there's just laws that have changed, ways this has affected people's bodies and their health and our water. So thank you for the work. Thank you for the time today. And then where can people watch it?
It's going to be premieres tonight on Fox 9 at 8 p.m. So you can watch it on your television sets at 8 p.m. You can also find it on YouTube and on the Fox Local app, so you can download it later, watch it later. But we hope to, hopefully this kind of helps create a historical record so that if you want to understand PFAS, you want to understand the company and the players that were involved in this early on, hopefully we can help fill in some of those gaps.
And some of the turning points, the what ifs along the way, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of checkpoints along the way where, as Lori Swanson called, forks in the road, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. High stakes stuff. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, Joe. We'll be right back. We're going to